Brian here behind the camera, showing you some of the things you're going to need for the challenge. Here's water, 5-gallon jugs of water. It's purified, and I fill it up that way because it doesn't have chlorine and fluoride in it. Here we have the Natural Factors MSM joint formula to help protect your joints. I take that twice a day, and we have vitamin D3. Each one of those pills is 5,000 IUs, exactly the amount you need to take every day on the challenge. There's my gallon jug that I drink of water every day. I drink a gallon a day of purified water. A couple of organic melons. Tomatoes. Tomatoes are actually on the challenge. They're totally okay because I consider them a vegetable. Whether they're a fruit or a vegetable, they're not high glycemic, and that's really important. Tons of avocados, pears, all organic. Greens. Look at the price on those greens, pretty cheap. I got them at Wheat Ridge Meat and Poultry in Edgewater in Colorado, if you live in Colorado. Here are a bunch of eggs. There are 3 missing already because I just cooked them and ate them. Here's red trout, again at Wheat Ridge Meat and Poultry. It looks like salmon, it's actually red trout. If you've ever had trout before and you like fish, it's delicious. Organic baby carrots for vegetables to take quick on the go that I don't need to prepare. Apples, bag of organic apples. Some blueberries, and I'm going to go through a lot more blueberries than that. Here in this box we have meat in these bags, and again I got this at Wheat Ridge Meat and Poultry, and there is in there chicken breast and then a whole bunch of ground beef. And ground beef is perfectly okay on this challenge for the meat that you eat, as long as it's basically a lean ground beef. Now here's olive oil that I add to the food after I cooked it, and here's coconut oil that I use for cooking. Now in one of the next videos I'm going to actually prepare this food and show you how easy it is. Step 1, basic food prep. What you're going to do is take the coconut oil, and it's not always so easy, but since it's hot right now we're going to pour just a little bit of that coconut oil in the pan, a little bit in the pot, and a little bit where the chicken's going to go. In a glass dish, we're going to turn on the oven, bake at 350, preheat it, turn the pot to a low to medium heat, and do the same thing for the pan. Now we have the red trout in the pot, cooking at a low to medium heat. We have the ground beef in the other pot. We're going to start to stir that around in just a second here. And we have the chicken. What I'm going to do here is add some spices. Sea salt, number 1. Put a little bit of that on everything. Don't worry about sea salt. We'll talk about that later, but it won't cause you any issues. We also have some parsley flakes, some red chili flakes, and some onion powder. And I'm just going to take each of these spices, put them on each one of these foods. I'm going to take this chicken and I'm going to put it into the oven at 350 degrees. We are going to cook it for exactly an hour and a half. The spices are on the meats. There's a red trout. It smells delicious right now if you like fish, ground beef. I'm going to take this spatula and I'm going to break apart this ground beef until I get it completely broken apart. It's going to cook a lot faster that way. And you're going to want to keep stirring that as you go along. Okay? Not too difficult. The chicken I'm going to take and put into the oven. It's now heated up. And we don't have to worry about that for another hour and a half. So next, we're going to look at what to do with all these vegetables, tomatoes, melons, and the apples, and apple cider vinegar, and Tupperware containers, the cutting board, and the knife. That's what you need next. And look at this, paper towels and cleaning stuff so that I can clean as I go. And I keep an organized kitchen. It feels a lot better that way. Don't forget to flip the salmon after you cook it. As you can see, I totally mutilated, the red trout. And I mutilated the red trout when I flipped it over. You might need a bigger pan to do that. It's still going to cook just fine. It'll taste delicious. There's a ground beef. And you can also cook the red trout in the oven. Just make sure you don't cook it for too long because you don't want to lose all those juices. So the fish is done cooking. What we did is we opened up the carrots. We put an even amount of carrots to fill about 4 of those Tupperwares, 5 of them actually. The fish was done cooking, so we added the fish to one of those containers of carrots. We cut up the tomatoes put the tomatoes in the Tupperware. Once the fish got done cooking, we put the fish on top of the tomatoes. So now I'm starting to put together my food containers for the week. We're doing it in layers. Notice now I'm cooking the spinach. You can eat the spinach raw and that's totally fine. I'm going to cook mine because I like it a little better that way. It's really easy to do. Beef is just about done here. Next we're going to take the beef and add it into the Tupperware. The spinach is going to reduce to about 1/10 that size, but it's going to taste really good. And I added some olive oil on top of the spinach to cook it with. And I know I say don't cook with olive oil, but it's okay. It's not a huge deal. It's just a little bit better cooking with the coconut oil and adding the olive oil on afterwards. So next we're going to add some more food and we're going to cut up the melon. Okay, ground beef is done cooking. We've added the ground beef to the carrots. Now we have a whole bunch of different containers of food, all with a vegetable. I consider tomatoes a vegetable, whether they really are or not, but they are as far as this food plan is concerned. And a protein source, and there's about 4 to 6 ounces of fish or ground beef in each one of these containers. The spinach is cooking down. Looks really good, and the rest of the ground beef is in a bigger Tupperware container, and we're going to use that later on in the week to fill up these smaller Tupperware containers again. So we are moving right along. The melon is cut. I'm going to keep the melon cut this way. I'm not going to cut the skin off, although if you want to make eating it a little bit easier, you can actually cut the outside off the melon. I'm going to cut the rest of that melon. I'm going to put it in this bag so it's all together. Coming right along. Okay, the spinach is done cooking, and what we did is just added all that spinach on top of the extra container of ground beef. We're going to take this container, split it into probably about 4 or 5 different smaller segments, and that'll last us another day later on in the challenge. We have all these containers set to go. So what I'm going to do next is take the apple cider vinegar. I'm going to put my finger over the top so it doesn't all come spilling out. Put a little bit of that into each one of these containers. Kind of pops out. You got to be careful there. A little bit of olive oil, and again, just a little bit of that on each of these containers for the healthy fat from the olive oil, which actually helps you to burn more fat. The apple cider vinegar is excellent for a lot of reasons, primarily for this particular plan you're following, because it helps to speed up your metabolism by helping you digest your food faster. So I'm actually going to add a little bit of that and a little bit of olive oil to every one of these containers and put the lids on. And here we go. We have all the Tupperwares full of food, a few of them anyway. I have some extra foods here that I'm going to take with me. I have some raw walnuts, a pear, an apple, and 2 avocados. Now in my bag that I take with me for the day, I have 3 Tupperwares, 3 of the Tupperwares that I made, and then 1 of those big bags of honeydew melon. Now I'm going to make sure and put all this stuff in the refrigerator wherever I go. If I don't put it in the refrigerator that day, it's okay. I just want to make sure I eat all that food before the end of that day. So I'm going to add this stuff in here. Now the reason I'm only taking 3 Tupperwares is because I'm going to eat breakfast before I leave home. There's 1 meal. I'm going to eat those 3 Tupperwares throughout the day. There's 4 meals. One of my snacks is going to be the pear with 1 large handful of these almonds. So that accounts for 5 meals right there. And when I get home at the end of the day, I'm going to have my dinner, and that's meal number 6. There you have it. Now because I cooked so much food during this one time period, which by the way took me 45 minutes. Took me almost exactly 45 minutes for the preparation, for taking the food out, putting it in the pans and everything. That's not very long. Now this is all the excess food I have. So with breakfast and dinner, plus this Tupperware, that's going to last me another day. And with some of this fruit, and with some of this fruit and the avocados. Here's another day with breakfast and dinner. Here's another day with breakfast and dinner. And the pear and almond snack that I have. So here's 1, 2, 3 more days on top of this 1 day. So that's 4 days already out of the 10 total days in the challenge. And don't forget, I still have my chicken in the oven. It's got to cook for about another 45 minutes. Once that comes out, we're going to have even more food already prepared to last us throughout this challenge. So when you do all the cooking up front, you do yourself a whole lot of good.